Okay.
Sebentar sayang. Iya nanti habis ini. Sebentar habisnya.
Oh, okay. That's how we do it.
Okay, so I haven't seen anything in my screen right now. Still working.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Nguyen, I have already set it up.
Yep.
You can start the classes wherever you are ready, please.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So the topic of the last lecture is on conversational implication, which is a very important topic in pragmatics. So conversational implications just means implied meaning or indirectness, or going beyond the literal meaning of what is said. Right. So the speaker's meaning. So we know that indirectness is a very universal kind of phenomenon. In other words, it exists. We can say in all languages. Right. I mean, in every language, people have conventions for expressing themselves indirectly, and indirectness is actually more common than directness. So indirectness occurs when we say things that what we say does not really correspond to what we mean, right? So got it. All right. So very often in social interactions, meaning is expressed beyond the surface, but it is still understood, right? And we may wonder, how is it possible that this can happen? So in fact, the ability to interpret unstated meaning or non-literal meaning can be explained in terms of the cooperative principles by Grice, which is the focus of today's lecture. Right. So we are going to talk about the cooperative principle and conversational implications, and I'll make link to speech acts, so conversational implications and indirect speech acts. How are they related? Conversational implications and politeness, right? How do they relate? I think Muzuria said that in the last lecture, right? She said that maybe today I can make some links between Leeds and Lacoste, the Linus principle, and conversational implications. So I'm going to touch on it a bit. And then conversational implication across cultures. So how do people, in different cultures interpret non-literal meaning, and what kind of trouble can it, cause, can the differences cause to intercultural communication? All right. So, yes. So what's the communication is about, all right? So when people talk with each other, they try to converse smoothly and successfully, right? So the goal of communication is to understand each other, to achieve our goal, our communicative goals. And cooperation is the basis of successful conversations. So if you look at this conversation, right, between A and B, and we can say that immediately that this conversation takes place in a butcher's, right, shop. So A say, "Hi, what would you like?" And B say, 200 grams of the shaved ham, thanks. So we can see that both speakers A and B here observe the conversational rules, right? They say what is required at this particular stage of the conversation. What they say is relevant to the conversation. And they say what needs to be said, no more, no less, and in a very clear and unambiguous manner, right? So this is what we say, this is what we mean cooperation, okay? And it is the basis of successful communication. Right, let me, whoop. I don't know why it doesn't move. Okay, here it is. Right, so yes, so this guy, Grice, right, Paul Grice, very important person, say that there's certain principles based on which people cooperate for successful communication, right? And he said that there's an underlying principle that decides or determines the way in which language is used with maximum efficiency and effectively to achieve rational interaction in communication. And he calls this principle the cooperative principle. Okay, so the kind of conversational rules that people use in order to achieve cooperation in communication. So how is it, right? What do those conversational rules look like? So he said that we can achieve cooperation or smooth communication by observing or following four kind of rules, maxims, right? Four kind of maxims. So be truthful. The first one is qualitative, right? Qualitative maxim, or maxim of quality, sorry, maxim of quality. Be truthful. Don't say what is false. Don't say what lacks evidence. So we have to say what is truth. Okay, what we believe is truth. And maxim of quantity, be informative. Don't say less than is required, or don't say more than is required. Just say enough. Okay, maxim of relation, be relevant. Okay, so say things that is relevant. And manner, maxim of manner, be clear, avoid obscurity, avoid ambiguity, be brief, be orderly, right? So basically what Grice is trying to say here is participants in a conversation expects whatever the speaker says is truthful, informative, relevant, and clear. Okay, so in fact, if we think about how people speak in interaction, it shows that we are aware the way that we speak, the way that we communicate in interaction, right? Shows our awareness of those maxims. For example, sometimes we say, I don't think I have sufficient evidence for this, but, or I'm not sure if this is true, but I may be wrong, but. So those kind of phrases show that we are aware of the need to be truthful, okay, to say things that we have evidence of, or we believe is truthful. Or I'm not at liberty to say anymore. I'm sure you already know this, but I probably don't need to say this, but. So to cut a long story short, so observing the maxim of quantity, okay, say just enough, right? Don't say more than required, or don't say less than required. I know this is irrelevant, but, oh, by the way, not to change the topic, but, so observing the maxim of relation, right? Be relevant, say things that are relevant. This is a bit confused, but, or I don't know if this makes sense, but, right? So observing the maxim of manner, right? So we are always, I mean, this kind of knowledge is kind of implicit knowledge, right? We all know that in conversation, we need to be truthful, we need to be informative, we need to say things that is relevant, okay, to what is going on, okay, and we need to say things in a clear manner, all right? But, okay, so, all right, so Grice, okay, so it's important to note that Grice was not trying to tell us how to behave in interaction as interlocutors. He was just only suggesting that conversation is governed by certain conventions, and the hearers tend to assume that the speakers are conforming to these conventions. And if they are not conforming to those conventions, then they have good reasons not to, okay? So when they don't say things that is not truthful, okay, when they say more or less than is required, or when they say things that seemingly is irrelevant, or when they say things in a unclear manner, all right, meaning they're not observing the conversational rules or maxims, right? They must have some good reason for that. All right, let's look at this example. This is a real example, right? A conversation between me and a sales girl at a clothes shops in Marina Square in Singapore many years ago. Okay, so conversation, right? So she, as I entered the shop, she asked me, would you like to try on this blouse? Me, do you have something that is less orange? And then he go, oh, so you don't like this color? And then me, well, this one is a bit too bright for me. So you can see that in this conversation, I flouted the maxims the conversational maxim a few times, right? So the first, in the first line, right, after the sales girl asked me, would you like to try on this blouse? I said, do you have something that is less orange? So my answer on the surface, right, doesn't seem to be relevant to the question, right? And it also seems less informative than necessary, because she want me to say yes or no, right? Would you like to try on this blouse? Yes or no? But I didn't say that. I say less than required and more than required at the same time, right? You have something that is less orange. And why is it? Because I assume that she knows that I have to be cooperative, okay, following the cooperative principles. So when I'm less than cooperative, I assume that she knows that she has to infer, right, some other meaning that that I'm not stating explicitly here, and in fact she does, right? So she can understand what I mean by saying, oh, so you don't like this color, so she pick up what I mean, right? Yeah. So and then I say, well, this one is a bit too bright for me. So again, here I don't answer her question directly, right? I say less than required. I didn't say, no, I don't like this color, or yes, I like this color. But I say something that is that seems irrelevant on the surface, right? But what I mean is, I don't like the color. I like something that is less bright. Okay. So this is an example of what people do when they use conversational maxims. Okay, so sometimes we don't follow those maxims because we have a reason to do that, and the reason is because for me here, because I want to be direct. I don't want to answer questions directly, because I think it's not polite, because I'm suggesting that if I say it directly that I don't like the color, I'm suggesting that her choice of color is not, or she doesn't have good taste, for example, when she is suggesting the blouse to me. Okay, so this is another example. Okay, so John and Meredith, a conversation between two people, and John say, are you done yet? And Meredith say, well, let's see, I've had to deal with 7 near catastrophic system failures in the last 4 hours. Elizabeth dragged me to 4 different useless meetings, and someone replaced my regular coffee with decaf, so I'm only just getting caffeine in my system, and I still have to track down whoever did it and slowly eviscerate them, which is a little higher on my to-do list at the moment than fixing your stupid computer. So no, I'm not done yet, actually. So this is a question that, are you done yet, right? So this is the answer that is expected by John. No, I'm not done yet. But instead, Meredith gave more information than required, right? And John said, gee, a simple no would have just surfaced. So what Meredith is trying to do here, when she is flouting the maxim of quantity, is she is showing that she is very frustrated, and she wants to vent out her frustration at John, okay, at the question, right? So yes, so people don't observe, okay, they don't follow the conversational maxims for a reason. Okay, so yes, so Rice say that sometimes a speaker fails to observe a maxim, not with any intention of deceiving or misleading, right? But because the speaker wishes to prompt the hearer to look for a meaning which is different from or in addition to the expressed meaning. And this additional meaning is conversational implication. So in other words, okay, conversational implication is an additional, unstated meaning to be assumed to maintain the cooperative principle. Okay, so it sounds kind of abstract, but it just means that is implied meaning. Okay, it's the kind of meaning that we imply when we flout, okay, the maxim, the conversational maxims in the cooperative principle. All right. So yes, so I'm going to give you a few examples of how people flout maxim, different conversational maxim, in order to imply something that they don't want to state directly or say directly, right? So this is an example. When Sir Maurice Bowra was warden of Wadham College, Oxford, he was interviewing a young man for a place at the college. And he eventually came to the conclusion that the young man would not do. Okay. Helpfully, however, he let him down gently by advising the young man, I think you'll be happier in a larger or smaller college. Okay, so what we can see here is Sir Maurice Barra had just flouted the maxim of quality. He didn't say what he truly thinks. Okay, so it's an indirect refusal, right? So he turned down the candidate, but in a very gentle, indirect way, not to hurt his feelings. Okay, so when you can flout the maxim of quality by not saying what you mean in order to indirectly refuse someone or turn down someone, right? This is another example. You may also flout the maxim of quality to express sarcasm or irony, right? Very, very common. For example, I just saw this article yesterday. So you may all know that this is a very difficult time, inflation everywhere, right? So in New Zealand, it's the same. Our inflation rate is very high, and people are very unhappy about the fact that prices, at the supermarket has just gone up. So everything has gone up, right? Rents, and grocery prices, everything is gone up. Petrol, gas. So this is an article. It would be first double-digit milk price on record if it comes to pass. And ASB Bank predicts record 10 kg, right? $10 per kg of solid milk price for 2022 and 2023. So in other words, the price of the milk solid, based on which you make milk for babies, right, will go up a lot, okay, compared to the previous years. And this is not good news. And if you look at people's comment, this is a comment that I got from Facebook. Inflation is great. All right. Now, of course, inflation is not great. So what the speaker is meaning is inflation is not great, right? So this is a sarcasm or irony. And the speaker here had just basically flouted the maxim of quality. So he said something that he didn't believe in order to express a sarcasm. Okay, so we always do that in real life. Okay, this is another example. So something found on Facebook, all right, between two friends. So someone called David Daw to say, just wanted to make sure that you're okay. So David Daw posted on Robert Strohmeyer's Facebook, all right, and then he said, just wanted to make sure that you're okay. I haven't seen somebody drink that much since college. Now, this is the kind of information that you don't want to post on someone's Facebook because you don't want other people to know that, like your friend drinks a lot, right? So the friend, Robert, right, has just reacted. He said, this isn't private, right? This isn't private, right? So Robert, right, is flouting the maxim of quality here in order to express his disapproval of what David Daw did. Okay, so you posted some private information on a public forum, okay, and that doesn't do good for me. Okay, that's what he meant. Okay, so yes, if we think about idioms, right? Idioms are usually expressed by flouting the maxim of quality. Okay, so I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Moo, all right. So we can't eat a horse, right? But you say that, you exaggerate it, right? So flouting the maxim of quality by exaggerated, right? As a way of expressing idioms. Okay, so before I move on to the next maxim, can you think of any example where people flout the maxim of quality in order to express indirectness, in order to express something or express their meaning in an indirect way or implicit way? Okay, you want to type your answer into the chat room? One example of how people flout maxim of quality, right? How flout the maxim of quality to express their indirectness or indirect meaning It happens a lot, right? Just try to recall, any conversation that you have just had with your friends recently.
Anyone? You may write down in your chat room. Sorry, a little bit cough.
You okay?
I'm just a little bit cough for this day.
Is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, let's see if there's any example. Just want to make sure that, yeah.
Nobody want to share? Hello, guys, students.
Oh, yeah, here. You are very diligent. Okay, you are very diligent.
What does it mean?
Right, you are very diligent. All right. Yep. So when yeah, so if you say that to someone who is not diligent, right, you say you are very diligent, right? Or some, like another example is when your friend broke a vase, which is very precious vase that you just bought, then you may say something like, oh, you really know how to help me out, right? So flaunting the maximum of quality in order to express an irony or sarcasm. All right. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's move on to the next maxim. All right. Flaunting the maxim of quantity. How about that? Okay. Yeah. So flaunting the maxim of quantity is when you say things, you say less or more than required. So this is an example that we have just seen, I think, in the first lecture. Okay, between two friends. I say that was an excellent movie, and so A was trying to elicit agreement, right, from B, but then B say, well, I thought that the cinematography was spectacular and some part was brilliant. Okay, so some parts were brilliant rather than, so that means other parts were not brilliant, right? So yeah, so indirect disagreement, okay, expressed by flaunting the maxim of quantity. Another example, what's wrong with Dad's parent, Mom? Nothing, dear. They are kind, warm, thoughtful, charming, giving, helpful, loving. No one say that many nice things about someone unless they secretly hate them. Gently, funny, attractive. This is a very funny comic, right? But yes, so flaunting the maximum of quantity, saying more than enough in order to express your frustration, right, at someone. Yes, advertisement. Okay, always say less than required in order to invite audience to infer meanings. Okay, that is not stated explicitly. Okay, and usually they use this kind of strategy, right? This cost strategy because it's more impressive than say things directly. Okay, so burgers for less what? Less money, less what? Okay. So less, it can be, yeah, so up to 70% off, right? So less money, all right? This is another example of flaunting the maxim of quantity, okay? Reserve parking, $250 fine. All right, so you don't have to say, so you don't have to say more than enough because people can infer the implied meaning here. So the real meaning is you are not allowed to park here because if you park here, you'll be fined. Okay, $250. All right. So this is another example that people may flout maxim of quantity for making jokes. Okay, so justice of the peace, talking to the bride who teaches linguistics, unfortunately. Okay, you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband in good times or in bad. The bride, after a brief pause, in good times. So, all right, so because she knows linguistics, right? So she purposefully flouted the maxim of quantity to be humorous. Tautologies, I don't know whether you have heard of these terms or you have you encountered these terms in semantics, but tautologies mean using different words just to say the same things, even if the repetition does not provide clarity. So example of tautologies are like boys are boys, war is war, cigar, cigar, I want to live while I'm alive, right? So those kind of things, right? So tautology is another way of expressing meaning by flouting the maxim of quantity. So saying things, saying less than required or less informative than required, right? In order to express your meaning. Yes, scalar implicatures are another example of flouting the maxim of quantity in order to express indirect meaning. So scalar implicatures, like using words which express one value from a scale's value. So when you say, for example, almost, many, some, few, always, often, sometimes, and when one value is asserted, right, the negatives of all values higher or lower on the scale is implicated. That means that when we choose one of the value, right, we implicitly negate, okay, all the other relevant values. So an example is, have you completed your study? Okay, I've completed some of the courses. So if we think about the scale here, we have all at the top and some at the bottom. Okay, so when you say I've completed some of the course, what you mean is I haven't completed many, I haven't completed most courses, I haven't completed all courses, right? So when we choose one value, we negate all the other values. So scalar implicatures are actually by flouting the maxim of quantity, because you don't have to say more than required, right? You just say less than required in order to express your meaning, right? Okay. Another example of scalar implicatures is on the scale always, often, and sometimes. What do you think about the pragmatic class? It's sometimes interesting. Okay, so on a scale, always at the top, sometimes at the bottom, right? When you choose sometimes, you negate often and always. So what you mean here is, it's not always interesting, it's not often interesting, it's only sometimes interesting. All right, so yeah, so by using scalar implicature, you can express your meaning in an indirect way, okay, by flouting the maxim of quantity. We also can flout the maxim of relation in order to express our meaning as well. Okay, so this is an example of a conversation between Tom and Sally. And Tom say, "Hi, Sally, are you done with your work for today?" Sally, "Well, I'm getting ready for the trip to New York. I'm leaving here at noon tomorrow." And Tom say, "Oh, do you need a ride to the airport?" And Sally say, "Oh, Jim already promised to take me on his way home." All right. So what is Tom doing here? In the third line is offering to take Sally to the airport. And what is Sally doing? Right? In the fourth line is to turn down the offer. But she didn't turn down the offer directly. She turned it down in a very gentle, subtle way. She say, "Oh, Jim already promised to take me on his way home." So what she is doing here is she's flouting the maxim of relation. She says something that is seemingly irrelevant on the surface, okay? But by saying that, she assumed that Tom knows that both of them must use cooperative principle. And when Sally doesn't observe the maxim, all right, the conversation of maxim, Tom must infer another meaning that Sally doesn't want to express explicitly, right? And that meaning is an indirect refusal. This is another example of flouting the maxim of relation to express your indirect meaning. A, so this is at the party. A say, "Oh, so the new boss is giving you a hard time, isn't he?" And B say, "Would you like another drink?" Because A knows that the boss is around. So when A says something that is seemingly irrelevant, okay, sorry, when B says something that seemingly irrelevant to A's utterance, B is hinting to A that don't mention the boss because he's around, right? Okay, yeah, this is another example in from a movie. Okay, someone asked a question here. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yes, flouting the maxim of relation, right? This is from a movie called Bridget Jones's Diary. I don't know if you have seen the movie or if you have read the novel. It's very interesting, right? So this is a guy called Mark, right? And this is the main character, Bridget Jones, okay, who is a very weird but lovely lady, okay, and Mark and Bridget's actually they're in a very unusual kind of relationship, but Mark has a crush on Bridget and Bridget also has a crush on Mark, but they haven't expressed their love yet, so they're not yet in a relationship. Okay, so this happened when this is Bridget's birthday, right? And she invited her friends over for dinner, and Mark just dropped by without being invited. Now, and Mark was I think he was married before and then he divorced, and obviously Bridget's friends didn't seem to like Mark. So this is a conversation at the dinner table, right? Okay, friend A, excellent. So, praising Bridget's cooking. Friend B, delicious, really special. It's really very good. And Mark say, really, it's very nice. Okay, and then one friend asked, so Mark, why did your wife leave you? All right, this is not a very nice question to ask, in this kind of context when they are celebrating Bridget's birthday and they know that Mark is trying to, be in a relationship with Bridget, right? So at that point, Bridget say, eat up, 2 more lovely courses to go. So she tried to interrupt so that the conversation, about why Mark's wife left him cannot continue, right? So, and by being irrelevant or by say things that is not immediately relevant to the conversation about Mark's wife, okay, Bridget sent a hint to her friends that shut up, don't ask such, like a silly question, all right? Okay, this is another example. Sometimes we can flower maxim a relation in order to achieve a humorous effect. So this is a conversation between a medical advisor and someone who called on the phone for medical advice. The advisor asked, right, and are you allergic to anything? And the caller say, only cat, and they laughed, if that's any help. Okay, now when you call for medical advice and people ask you about if you're allergic to anything, what they mean is if you are allergic to any food or any kind of like medicine, right? They don't expect you to say that you are allergic to cat. So what the caller is saying here is kind of irrelevant to the question, and the purpose is to make it funny, to create a humorous effect. Okay. Yes, so this is an example of a recommendation letter. So John Smith, right, wanted to apply for a scholarship, and he asked his supervisor or his lecturer or his professor to write a recommendation letter for him. And this is a recommendation letter that John Smith received from his professor. John Smith has regularly and punctually attended all my classes and tutorials. He has very neat handwriting, and I have always found him to be polite and good-natured. I greatly enjoy having him in my class. So if just, by reading this kind of letter of recommendation, do you think that the professor has a high opinion of John Smith's academic abilities or not? Yes or no? Obviously no, right? Why is it? Because the professor didn't write any comments, okay, about John Smith's academic ability, okay? Because in order to apply for a scholarship, you need to be academically strong. Yeah, no, right? So yes, you need to be academically really strong. But the professor didn't say anything about his academic ability. He says about things that is not relevant, okay, to the scholarships, okay? Like, for example, he's punctual, he attended all classes and tutorial, his handwriting is neat, and he's polite, he's good nature, all right? So basically, the professor is flouting the maxim of relations here, saying something that is not relevant to the context in order to imply imply that he doesn't really highly value or he doesn't have a high opinion of Chomsky as a student, as a candidate for the scholarship. Okay, this is another example of right. So before I move on to the next one, yes, do you want to write down in the chat box an example of how we can flout the maxim of relation to express our indirect meaning? So just one example. Anyone? Any example? No example to share. Oh, okay. If no example to share, let's move on to the next maxim, which is the maxim of manner, right? Oh, yeah, good. So I see there's an example here. Okay, Angel is so humble, down to earth, and kind. Irrelevant because she's arrogant. Oh, okay, I see. Or it could also be, yeah, I mean, right. I mean, depending on the intention, right? Depending on the meaning of the utterance. If you are saying it as a sarcasm, then you are flouting the maxim of quality, right? Say things that you don't really believe in. Or if you write a letter of recommendation for someone for a job, right, for example, and you mention something that is not relevant to the job's requirements. For example, if the job requires that you have a bachelor degree in linguistics and you must be good with you must speak a few languages, for example. You must be able to communicate fluently in English, for example, and you don't mention all those requirements, but you say, oh, she's a very nice person, she's very down to earth, for example, then yes, then you are flouting the maxim of relation. All right, good. Okay, maxim of manner. So the maxim of manner says that we have to say things in a clear, okay, orderly manner. All right, and when people flout such a maxim, all right, they mean something else. Okay, so an example: a husband says to his wife, "Why their little daughter is eating her meal. I was thinking of going out to get some of that funny white stuff for somebody." All right. So what is that funny white stuff? That is a sacred quote, right? So yes. So ice cream, yeah, ice cream. But because the parent don't want the child to know that she is getting an ice cream, because if she knows that, she may just stop having her meal, right, and waiting for the ice cream. So they have to use the sacred quotes between themselves, okay, so here basically she's flouting. Okay, the husband is flouting the maxim of manner to hint to his wife that don't say it out loud, okay? You know what I mean, but don't say it out loud because we don't want our daughter to stop having her meal, okay? Let her finish her meal first, all right? So in real life, we usually use sacred quotes like that, right? To send hint to people, okay? Oops, sorry. Right, this is another example of someone flouting the maxim of manner. I hear you went to the opera last night. How was the lead singer? The singer produced a series of sounds corresponding closely to the score of an aria from Rigoletto. All right, so what is it? B's answer is very unclear. All right, so what he's saying is the singer produced a series of sounds, not an opera, not a song, but a series of sounds that are similar, okay, similar to a song that they both know. So this is an indirect criticism when you are kind of like flouting the maxim of manners, so being ambiguous, all right, to express your implicit meaning. So in this case, B is indirectly criticizing the singer, that she sang so badly that B couldn't recognize the song that she was singing. Advertisement also usually use usually flout the maxim of manner in order to make it impressive. Okay, so this is very funny. Brad is single. Brad is who is Brad? Brad Pitt. Okay, so just 2 days after Angelina Jolie filed a divorce from Brad Pitt, Norwegian Airlines created a very playful advertisement for cheap flight to Los Angeles, and the advertisement just went viral. All right, so Brad is single. All right, Los Angeles from one way include taxes and then the price. All right, so the maxim of manner is flouted here, okay, in order to appeal to Brad Pitt's fans, okay, and admirers, and to create humorous effect as well. So Brad Pitt now is single. Let's fly to Los Angeles to meet him or to see him or whatever, right? Okay. Yeah, this is another example of how advertisement may flout the maxim of manner in order to sell their product. All right, so here is to the best part of your day. What does it mean? So the best part of your day. Oh, so that's a coffee, right? I mean, it makes your day better. All right. This is another example I'm going to share with you. It's very funny. It's an advertisement of it's a beer commercial, right? Okay. I think I need to share the sound with you. Yeah. Yeah, it's very funny.
Before you go.
No, it's not yet. After this, I'm trying to. Whoop. Yeah, from here, starting from here.
Imagine me and you and me. No matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me. So happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my.
Right. Okay. So what does it mean?
Jennifer
Okay, let's
Aniston.
go back. Yeah, that's her.
Do you have any other
That's her.
questions
Yeah.
for me?
So do you know the song? It's a very famous song, right? So happy together. And who is happy with whom? The man and his beer, right? So here the maximum manner is being flouted in order to make an impression on the buyers. Okay, being unclear, being
Lieutenant, do you
being
have anything
ambiguous.
further for this witness?
All right. Oh, what's that? Hang on. I think my video is still on.
Thanks, Danny. I love Washington.
Excuse me.
Oh,
I need to dismiss you.
A few good men, ma'am.
I beg your pardon.
I think how can
Yeah.
I go back to the?
Your
I think
YouTube,
it's the
I think.
video.
Yes, the YouTube is still on.
Colonel.
Yeah, I know. I just go.
I'd appreciate if you
Where is-
address me as Colonel or Sir. I believe I've earned
Give me a
it.
minute.
No problem. Take your
Counsel will address
time.
the witness as Colonel or Sir.
I need
know
to
what the
find a
hell kind of
way
unit
to go
you're
back to
running.
my.
And the witness will address this court as Judge or Your
Ooh,
Honor. I'm quite certain I've earned it. Take your seat.
how can I go back to the YouTube? I know that the YouTube is still on, but I don't know how to go back to that. Just see. No, this one. Can you just give me 1 minute?
Yes, please.
So. Okay.
Is it okay already?
Close down. Right, then I close down. All right, so hopefully it's okay now.
Yes, no more voice for the YouTube, man.
Oh no, it's still.
Still?
How can I go back to the YouTube? You know?
You can try to click the previous link
Oh,
and then you
my
go to
child.
that YouTube, right?
How can we go back to the YouTube?
Just click on the link that you want to share later previously. The advertisement of the beer.
Yes.
Click the link, you're going to there. You're going to that YouTube, I think.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
That's so simple, and I drink. All right, thank you so much. So yes, so far we have covered how people can flout different maxims of conversation, right? Maxim of quality, maxim of quantity, maxims of relations, maxim of manner for different purposes. Okay, so advertisement usually flout one of the maxims to create an effect on the audience. Sometimes we express our sarcasm and our irony, right? Or idioms also can be expressed by flouting one of the maxims. All right. So why do we need all the maxims here, right? Because the maxims allow us to be more brief in communicating, because we don't have to say everything that we would have to or would need to, right? And also they allow us to say things indirectly in order to avoid some of the discomfort which comes from saying unpleasant things directly. They also allow us to insult people secretly, right, or indirectly without as much danger of confrontations. And they also allow us to imply dissatisfaction or anger without putting us in a position where we will have to directly defend our views. So when we are indirect, we don't have to take responsibility of what we say, because we can always deny what we say by saying, oh, it's just that you are misinterpreting what I say, right? Because you say things indirectly. All right. So, okay. Oh, sorry. I forgot to share my slide. So this is the slide, right? Yes. So there are many different things that we can do by being indirect. Okay. And that's how the maxim help us to do. All right. So how are conversational implications related to indirect speech acts? So you can say that actually a lot of non-conventionally indirect speech acts or hinting. A lot of speech acts can be expressed indirectly by flouting one of the maxims. So in this case, conversational implications and indirect speech acts are the same. So indirect requests, for example, can you pass the sound? This is one of the example of flouting the maxim of relevant, because instead of asking people to pass you the sound, you ask them about their ability or their willingness to pass you the salt, right? So flouting the maxim of relation in order to express an indirect request. Are you free tonight? Well, I was planning on getting home early. So flouting the maxim of relation again, right? In order to indirectly turn down invitation. What do you think about Peter's essay? I think it's well typed. So this is an indirect criticism. And yes, and again, people can flout the maxim of relation or flout the maxim of quantity, right, in order to express indirect criticism or indirect disagreement as well. Okay, so that was an excellent movie. Well, I thought that the cinematography was spectacular and some parts were brilliant. So flouting the maxim of quantity, right, in order to express your disagreement in an indirect way. Okay, so conversational implications and indirect speech acts can be the same in many situations. Okay, where people flout one of the conversational maxims in order to express their intended meaning. What about politeness? So Lakoff, 1973, right, say that there are two rules of pragmatic competence. All right, so in order to be pragmatically competent, we need to be able to express our meaning clearly and express ourselves in a polite way. So there are two rules: be clear and be polite. But being clear and being polite sometimes can be at odds with one another, right? Because sometimes when you are clear, you are not polite. An example is when someone asks you, how do I look today? And if you think that they don't look good, and you are clear about your intention, you say you don't look good, then you are not being polite, right? So Leach, okay. So in the last lecture, we cover Leach politeness theory, right? So Leach say that sometimes there must be a trade-off between politeness and cooperative principles. So basically when being clear is at odds with being polite, then we need to give priority to being polite. Meaning that in such a case, right, in such a situation, being clear is not important anymore. Being polite is more important. So, yeah. So, for example, when you refuse someone, okay, when they say something like, "Can I take you out for dinner?" and you don't want to go out with them, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. So you can say something vague, like, for example, "Well, I really don't know, because today I have a lot of work to do. So I really don't know. I don't know. Sorry." Right? So you are being kind of like ambiguous in order to be polite, in order to not hurt their feelings. Okay? So if we recall what Leach says, okay, so conversation like this: "What do you think about Peter's essay? I think it's well typed." B is flouting the maxim of relations here, okay, in order to express an indirect criticism, okay, relation, because when you ask people feedback about someone's essay, you expect that they say something about the quality of the essay, but not the typing, right? Not the handwriting. So when B say, "I think it's well typed," B is flouting the maxim of relation. And according to Leach, B did that because he tried to minimize dispraise of others and maximize praise of others. All right. This is another example. Disagreement. Okay, that was an excellent movie. Well, I thought blah, blah, blah. So we've seen this example many, many times. B is flouting the maxim of quantity here because B just say about some parts, not other parts, right? And according to Leach, B said that because B flout the maxim of quantity, because B is trying to minimize disagreement with others and try to maximize agreement with others, right? So you can see that the maxims of politeness, right, are actually related to the conversational maxims. So people flout the maxim of conversation because they want to observe the maxim of politeness. All right. I hope that makes sense. Okay. And I think in your textbooks, in Leach's textbook, right, one of the textbooks that you use for your course, there's a distinction made between generalized and particularized conversational implications. So basically, there are two kinds of implications, two kinds of conversational implications, right? Generalized and particularized. So generalized means you don't need to know the context in order to understand the implication. So knowledge of context not required. Or in other words, context independent. Particularized implications means you need to know the context in order to infer the non-literal meaning. Okay, so they are context bound. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of a generalized conversational implications. So when someone say, for example, "Oh, I cut a finger yesterday," and then your reaction would be, "Oh, that's too bad," rather than, "Oh, whose finger did you cut yesterday?" Right? Because when people say, "I cut a finger yesterday," okay, although they didn't say that, "I cut my finger yesterday," you should understand that a finger refers to the speaker's finger, all right? Because cutting other people's finger is very funny. It's highly impossible, right? So here, based on the maxim of relation, okay, so you can infer the meaning that, right? A is observing the maxim of relations in here. So he says something that must be relevant. So a finger here must be A's finger. Or in the other example, right? "I broke a leg last month." And your reaction would be, "Oh no, what happened?" rather than "Whose leg did you break?" Because A must have spoken about his own leg, not someone's leg, right? Because breaking other people's leg is not possible in this situation. All right. So this kind of conversational implications is called generalized conversational implications, because you don't need to understand, you don't need to know the context in order to infer, okay, the implication. Another example is, can you pass the salt, please? So can you pass the salt, please, is an example of flouting the maxim of relations, and you still can understand this as a request without knowing the context, right? Okay. What about particularized conversational implications? Okay, I think there's another one. Yeah. So this is an example of what we call particularized conversational implications. I have a 14-year-old son. That's all right. I also have a dog. Oh, I'm sorry. Now, you won't be able to understand this conversational implications. You won't understand what B means when we say, that's all right, and oh, I'm sorry, without knowing the context of the conversation. So if I tell you that A is a tenant and B is a landlord, then it makes sense. Suddenly it makes sense, right? So I have a 14-year-old son. That's all right, meaning, yeah, okay, I don't mind you bring a child. I also have a dog. Oh, I'm sorry, pets are not allowed in my apartment, for example, right? So you can only understand the implication of B or B's intended meaning if you know the context, right? So this is what we call particularized implications. This is another example. Wife say to husband, when will you be back? And husband say, I should be back by 8, but you know what trains are like. Okay, so there are two kinds of conversational implications here. You know what the trends are like. Okay, so you know what trends are like. This means I may be late, and you don't need to know the context in order to infer this implication. Okay, so I may be late. This is what we call a generalized implication. But if we know that earlier, okay, the wife asked the husband to buy dinner on his way back, okay, then the particularized conversational implication that we can infer from this situation is, I may not be able to buy the dinner because the trains are late. Okay, so two kind of conversational implications can be inferred here. I may be late. Okay, that is generalized conversational implications because we don't need to know the context to infer it. Okay, the second implication is, I may not be able to buy dinners because the trains are late. Okay, and this implication can only be inferred if we know the context that previously the wife asked the husband to buy the dinner on his way back from work. All right. I think in your textbooks, there's also a distinction made between conversational implications and conventional implication. Okay, so conventional implication means any meaning, right? Any unstated meaning or implicit meaning that is associated with the use of specific words, for example, but, and, therefore, even, yet, and or, right? So those words express some kind of implied meaning. All right. So, for example, if you look at this conversation, he's handsome but poor versus he's poor but handsome. So which one is more positive? He's handsome but poor, or he's poor but handsome? The second one, right? Or even president had private life, or I think, therefore I am. All right. So those words, but, even, therefore, okay, are called conventional implications because they are expressed through linguistic means, linguistic resources, rather than by flouting conversational maxims. Okay, so this is another example. Let's go to the movie. Well, I'd rather get some fresh air. It's such a lovely evening. So, well, okay, and rather here are resources for expressing conventional implications, right? What about Hawaii Kai? Yeah, there are reasonable places there too, but well, anyway, shall we go see that place in Kailua tomorrow morning? So anyway here means you want to change the topic, right? To turn back to the to the original topic. All right, so those words express what we call conventional implications. All right. Yes, so some of the example, I don't know if we have time for cross-cultural differences. Maybe I just show one or two examples of cross-cultural differences, and we don't have time for the activities here, but yeah, but I can send you the answers, the suggested answer later. All right, so yeah, different cultures are different in terms of what they consider is a cooperative behavior. All right, so genuine and token imitations are a very good example of, you know, what is considered cooperative principle. So this is my true story, that, you know, that's something that happened to me when I first went overseas for study. Okay, so at a meeting among international students, we talk about cuisine in different cultures. And at one point, a Japanese girl said that she tried some Vietnamese food before and really liked it. And other students were really eager to know what she tried and how it tasted. So I felt very flattered about that, right? I felt very proud of my culture. So I said, I hope that one day I could cook some for you guys. And to my surprise, a Congo girl asked, when? Okay, so to me, I hope one day I could cook some for you guys. It's just a token invitation, you know. I just wanted to be nice, okay? And I say something that I really didn't mean, but because from my cultural perspective, right, token invitations are very common. It's just a way that we say things to be nice. But for my friend who comes from a different cultural background, then when you say something, it must be truthful. Okay, so to her, okay, if I didn't invite her, okay, or didn't cook for her, actually I violated the maxim of quality. Okay, so for her, I would tell a lie if I wouldn't cook for them one day. All right. Maxim of quantity. So how are you is a greeting, okay, formula rather than a question about health status. So giving a full account of your state of health in response to the question how are you is an example of observing the maxim of quantity, of infringing it. All right. Yeah, what about this one? Two Vietnamese exchange greetings as they were passing by each other, and one asked, where are you going? And the other person says, someplace. Now, this is a very, very common way of answering when people ask you, where are you going? Someplace. We are just observing the maxim of quantity here, because to us, answer questions like, where are you going? By saying someplace, it's enough, it's sufficient, it's just what is required of us to say. But to other cultures, maybe when you say someplace, it might mean something else. Something like, oh, I don't want to tell you, right? But such an implication can't be inferred in the context of the Vietnamese culture, because someplace is exactly what you are expected to say in this situation. So we don't flout the maximum of quantity. We observe it, right? Yes. Okay, I'm going to pass this one, and this one, okay. Yeah. Now this is also a very, very good example, but I don't think we have time for it because it's a part of a movie. I will leave the link here for you to watch. And this is you can see that when the West meets the East, there's so much miscommunication because of the different understanding of cooperative principles. Okay, so in the Chinese culture, for example, when you are very proud of your cooking, you usually criticize your own cooking. Okay, and by criticizing your own cooking, you are flouting the maximum of quality in order to elicit compliments. Okay, but for someone outside of the Chinese culture, they wouldn't understand that. They wouldn't understand that, you know, flouting the maxim, you know, criticizing a dish that you are so proud of is actually an example of flouting the maximum of quality. Okay, and you are invited to compliment or to praise the hero's cooking, right? A very, very interesting video. You can watch it at home by yourself. Oh, this is an example. See you later and when. Okay. In English, people usually say goodbye by saying see you later, even to a stranger. Okay. So see you later is they're actually observing the maxim of manner. Okay. So if you say when, it's very funny, right? Because see you later doesn't mean that I will see you later one day. It's just a formula of saying goodbye. So in another culture, okay, when you say see you later and you didn't set a date for an appointment, then you are actually not observing the maxim of quality. You're not saying things that you truly think, okay? But in the English culture, for example, this is not the case. Yes, when you teach writing, this is relevant. So I'm going to say about a bit more here. So different cultures, different writing style. If you look at Kaplan's rhetorical structure, this is a very famous, discussion of cultural differences in writing style. In English, very straightforward. Okay, in other cultures like Oriental, like Asian culture, for example, you go around, go around. Okay, you make your appointments. So you go from point 1 to point 2 to point 3 in order to make your appointment. So what is considered relevant and irrelevant? Okay, in different culture, it's different. So if you take a look at a letter of application for job, right? So job application letter. So this example comes from my colleague's study, okay, Dr. Chupa's study, and he looked at the letter of a job application between an American and a Korean, and if you look at the U.S. letter of job application, right? This is how they say. Firstly, they state that they're applying for a position. So they say, I'm writing to apply for the position of, a salesperson, okay, advertised in the Straits Times, right, on 22nd of June, 2022, for example. So the first move is setting the position that you apply for. And then the second move is including your resume, so saying, I attach my resume, okay, I have experience, blah, blah, blah. And then you explain your qualification and you express your desire for interview. Okay, so I would like, or I would appreciate it, or I would appreciate for an interview, or I would be happy to talk more in an interview. And you explain how it could be reached. For example, I can be reached or I can be contacted, okay, and then you give your email contact or your phone number, okay, and then say, looking forward to hearing from you, or I look forward to hearing from you, something like that, okay? So very straightforward, okay? You go from stating the position that you're applying to, explaining your resume, your qualification, your experiences, expressing your desire for an interview, how you can be reached, okay? And you conclude the letter. Whereas for the Korean, or for the Asian application, okay, letter, the first move is stating the position that you're applying for, and then the second move is including your resume, and then the third move is to ask for pity. Okay, so I'm so sorry, apologize, I apologize, or pardon me for the mistake or whatever, right? So ask for pity and then express apology. So, those two moves can be considered irrelevant, okay, in the English culture, in the Anglo-Saxon culture. But in an Asian context, like in the Korean context, for example, when you give this kind of extraneous information, right, it's actually relevant, right, to them, because they are just trying to be polite, trying to be humble, right? So yes, so when you teach writing, for example, bear in mind that sometimes students can be, they include details that can be considered irrelevant from the Anglo-Saxon perspective, from the English perspective, and that is because they're actually observing the maxim of relation in their culture. So that is something that you might want to highlight to your student, okay, when teaching writing. That's what is considered relevant or not relevant may be very different between their first language and second language. So yes, I don't think that we have more time for the presentations. I will send you the slide through Mr. Harry so that you can do the data analysis and you can watch the movie, the part of the movie that I put in the slide to understand, how people flout maxims in different cultures. I think I will just stop here so that we can have Q&A. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen, for a wonderful presentation. When I'm saying wonderful presentation, it doesn't mean that I am saying the, how do you say, indirect criticism, but it's purely for my saying wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And students, Raihan and your friends, maybe, if you have anything you want to share, you want to ask, you want to discuss with Dr. Nguyen, it's your time. It's going to be our last meeting for this semester. And I hope that everyone can, take this opportunity. It's really good opportunity for you students for having good discussion with Dr. Nguyen here. Anyone?
I want to ask a question, sir.
Oh, who is it? I don't see anyone. Can you mention your name?
My name is Anissa.
Okay, Anissa, go on.
Yeah.
Okay, so if someone likes to make a joke or he is or she is a funny person, is it necessary for them to float the maxims more than the others, or there is no correlation between the two of them? Thank you.
Do you mind repeating your question? Maybe do you want to type in the chat room so that everyone can see your question? Thank you, Anissa.
Anissa, are you still here?
Iya, Pak. Oh, saya.
Yes, you may type in the chat room if possible.
Yeah. So in the meantime, if there's any question, there's another question. You are welcome to type your answer. Type the question in the chat box. Yeah, I just want to share that, the conversational implications are so universal that, I don't know if you have young children at home, but I just realized that they learn how to infer conversational implications so well from quite a young age. For example, my child, whenever I say something like, "Oh, someone didn't behave well today," I'm flouting the maxim of manner, right? I say things that is very unclear. I didn't mention her name, but I say, "Oh, someone didn't behave nicely today," and she would be very mad at me. She would say, "Yeah, are you talking about me?" So they could actually infer conversational implication. Or she's very, very cautious whenever I say something. She just listen to my tone and say, "Are you being sarcastic?" Yeah. So young children, they learn how to infer non-literal meaning from quite a young age. So that shows that again, indirectness is very universal. It's something that exists, in is how people, because it is a convention. It exists in all different, languages, and that's part of, learning how to speak a language, how to use a language. Part of it is learning how to understand implied meaning and express implied meaning as well. I don't think I saw the question from Anissa here.
Yes, we are still waiting, Anissa.
Okay, yeah. If someone likes to make a joke, he or she is a funny person, is it necessary for them to flout the maxim more than the others, or there's no correlation between them? So flout the maxim, yeah, maybe. That's a very good question, right? And I also would like to say that I didn't have time to talk about the relevance theory, but in fact, Grice's cooperative principles have been criticized that there's an overlap between different between different maxims. Okay, so sometimes when you flout the I mean, sometimes it's very difficult to say whether you are flouting the maxim of quantity, quality. I mean, quality is clearer, but quantity or relations. So the relation, the relevant theory say that actually everything can be reduced to relevance. So so we need only one maxim, which is relation. So everything that we say in conversation must be relevant. And when we say things that doesn't seem to be relevant, then we may imply something, and we invite our interlocutors to look for that unstated meaning. So yes, I would say that I really don't know, but I would think so too. I would think that people who like to make jokes and who are good at making jokes are really good at language, right? They really know how to play with language in order to create a humorous effect on the audience. So they may know how to flout the maxims, and they may know how to do it more frequently than other people. Yeah. All right. So I hope that I have answered your question, Anissa. Yeah. I think there's another question. Is it possible if a person uses flouting the maxim just pure to make jokes, or not aim to saying? Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes, Raihan. Yes, I mean, definitely we can't really and in order as I said before, right, meaning making is a process of joint making, right? So in other words, it happens in interaction. So you really need to look at the conversation, okay, to see what is the person's intentions. Okay, you need to look at how the interlocutors interact, and how participants in conversation interact, and how they react to one another, to what one another says, in order to make sense of whether it is just a joke or is it an indirect criticism. Okay, we can't really decide without looking at the real interactions. Okay, but yes, definitely there is there is a possibility that you can just flout the maxim to make jokes only, not to say criticism indirectly. Okay, I hope that I have answered your questions. Okay, is there another questions? Yeah, I think there's another one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No.
Right.
Is that the question?
No. That's a thank you from Rayan. You're welcome,
Yes.
Rayan.
Okay, anyone? Before we finish for this meeting? Oh, no more question.
One.
Yeah.
There's another one in the chat. Oh, okay. No, this is a thank you from Anissa. You're welcome,
Yes.
Anissa. Yeah. So I just want to say that in conclusion, we flout the maxims to express a range of meanings. It can be irony. It doesn't need always to be irony, but it can be sarcasm, it can be jokes, it can be anything. All right. So we can't decide if we don't look at the real interaction, what's actually happening in the interaction. Okay. Only when we look at the real conversation, when we look at how people react to one another in the conversation, then we can tell what meaning they are trying to express by flouting one of the maxims. Is it just a joke, or is it a criticism, right? But I mean, someone who are humorous are usually very good at language, and they know how to manipulate language in order to be humorous, to be funny, right? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for giving the conclusion about the presentation for today. So I think everyone, we do really hope that we can still have a discussion with Dr. Nguyen. However, I think the time is more than enough for today's Dr. Nguyen.
Yeah.
And later on, I mean, students, if you still have any question to share, you may talk to Puzuria or also with Mr. Harry, and I'm going to, share to you your question, or maybe your, insight or something to Dr. Nguyen directly later on. Okay, yeah?
Sure.
Okay, I think that's
so
all
much.
for, yes. How?
Oh, thank you so much. I will send my slide to you again, Mr. Harry, so that you can
Yes,
help me to
exactly.
pass on to student. Yeah. It has been really, really, my pleasure,
Yes.
to have been talking to your students,
Yes,
over the
it's
last
the
4
honor is
weeks.
us. The honor is us, Dr. Nguyen, regarding the you have already give a lot of insight, a lot of new in knowledge and also insight for the students. We do really thank you as a representative of this department. I do really want to say thank you so much for your contribution during this visiting visiting professor program for this
Thank you.
semester, and hopefully for next semester or next year we still have getting any cooperation or getting any collaboration
All right.
between
Right. We can
between
discuss
this
that through
department and
email.
you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. And I
later
mentioned
on.
I connect
Yes,
you with Thailand. Yeah. I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, boys and girls, thank you so much for having this class for today. I think this is going to be, this not I think, but it's going to be our last meeting with Dr. Nguyen. So everyone, please say thank you so much to Dr. Nguyen, everyone. Give applause for her. Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen, for the session that we have for this whole 4 weeks. I hope that everyone happy with the presentation and hope that you guys having any benefit from the presentation that has been delivered from Dr. Nguyen for this whole 4 meeting. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I hope it
Thank you
makes
so much,
sense
everyone.
to everyone, and I hope that I hope that what I have shared will be useful to you as teachers in the
Sure.
future, and as well. Like I know that you have an exam later, right? So best
Yes.
of luck with your exam. All right. So thank you so much for the opportunities. It has been very, very nice working with you over the last 4 weeks. And thank you, Mr. Harry, for the opportunity.
Yes,
Right?
sure. That's the honor is on me, Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's all, everyone.
Yeah. So let's call it a
And
day.
yeah, just let's call it a day.
And enjoy the rest of your day. It's our evening time now.
Okay.
So yeah.
So have a nice weekend for you, Dr. Nguyen.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you too. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oke, jadi semuanya, that's all for the classes. I'm going to stop the recording and also the, what is that? Yes.